Justin Trudeau is in trouble, Europe is cracking down, and the Canadian Prime Minister is facing mounting criticism from global leaders. From diplomatic warnings to missed opportunities, Trudeau's leadership is being questioned like never before. But what's really going on behind the scenes, and why are European leaders losing patience with him?
Partnerships and institutions like NATO are built upon trust. Trust that when times get tough, we can count on each other, because you can always count on Canada.
Trust? That's exactly what's being called into question. In this video, we'll uncover how Trudeau's focus on climate change and AI is backfiring, why European leaders are issuing final warnings, and how this could spell disaster for Canada's global reputation.
We make sure that we have the energy to power AI in a clean enough way and an efficient enough way that's not going to set us back in our fight to reduce carbon emissions.
But here's the twist. While Trudeau talks about saving the planet, critics argue he's ignoring the real issues, like Canada's declining influence, economic challenges, and even threats to its sovereignty. And wait until you hear what European leaders are saying behind closed doors. It's not pretty. By the end of this video, you'll see why time is running out for Trudeau and how his leadership could be putting Canada's future at risk. So stay tuned, because what we're about to reveal might just change the way you see Justin Trudeau forever. Let's dive in. Europe's frustration with Trudeau. Justin Trudeau's leadership is under fire, and Europe is leading the charge. European leaders, once seen as Trudeau's allies, are now openly questioning his priorities and policies. The frustration stems from what they see as a lack of focus on critical global issues like economic growth and security. Instead, Trudeau seems fixated on climate change and AI, which, while important, are being criticized as distractions from more immediate concerns.
Our economic partnerships must also be deepened to allow for further growth, to create more opportunities for our workers and entrepreneurs, to give more choice to consumers, and to strengthen the middle class.
But can they? European leaders are beginning to doubt Canada's reliability under Trudeau's leadership. In Belgium, Trudeau's speech about economic partnerships and growth was met with skepticism, as leaders like Macron push for more concrete action on pressing issues. Critics argue that Trudeau's focus on lofty ideals like clean energy for AI is out of touch with the realities of global politics. While Europe grapples with economic challenges and geopolitical threats, Trudeau's priorities seem misaligned with the urgency of the moment. This stark contrast between Trudeau's rhetoric and the expectations of his European counterparts highlights the growing divide. As cracks in these relationships deepen, European leaders are beginning to issue warnings, signals that Trudeau's approach may be putting Canada's global reputation and partnerships at risk. Diplomatic warnings and growing tensions? The diplomatic warnings directed at Justin Trudeau are becoming increasingly difficult to ignore. European leaders, once aligned with Trudeau's vision, are now openly voicing their frustrations. In Belgium, Trudeau's emphasis on Canada's economic partnerships and NATO commitments was met with polite acknowledgement, but little enthusiasm. Behind closed doors, however, the tone is reportedly far less forgiving.
We cannot take these institutions for granted. We must renew and deepen our engagement towards them. That's what we're doing here today. In turbulent times, we all need reliable, trustworthy partners, and that's what Canada is. That's who Canadians are. Merci beaucoup.
While Trudeau's words aim to reassure, European leaders are questioning whether Canada, under his leadership, can truly be the reliable partner he describes. Macron, for instance, has reportedly expressed concerns about Trudeau's focus on abstract ideals like AI ethics and climate change, which, while important, fail to address the immediate economic and security challenges facing Europe.
It's essential and it's important, because not just it's going to transform our world, but how we do it thoughtfully, deliberately, responsibly is being decided right now. It wasn't being decided 7 years ago, certainly won't be decided 7 years from now. It's happening now.
Critics argue that Trudeau's preoccupation with long-term global issues like AI and climate change has left Canada unprepared to respond to more pressing concerns, such as trade disputes, defense spending, and the rise of authoritarian regimes. European leaders grappling with their own economic and geopolitical crises are growing impatient with what they perceive as Trudeau's lack of urgency and concrete action. This growing impatience is not just a matter of rhetoric. It reflects a deeper concern that Canada's global influence is waning under Trudeau's leadership, leaving the country increasingly isolated on the world stage. A quick favor before we continue. If you're enjoying the content, consider giving this video a like and subscribing to the channel. Over 98% of you watch without subscribing, and hitting that button really helps us out. It's free, easy, and keeps you in the loop for more great videos. Thanks a ton. Now, back to it. Canada's waning global influence? Canada's global influence is facing a critical test, and European leaders are beginning to question whether Justin Trudeau's leadership is up to the challenge. Once a respected middle power, Canada is now struggling to maintain its relevance in key international discussions. One of the most pressing concerns is Canada's failure to meet NATO's defense spending commitments. While Trudeau has repeatedly emphasized Canada's dedication to the alliance, the numbers tell a different story. Canada remains one of the lowest contributors to NATO's defense spending, falling short of the 2% GDP target.
When we took office in 2015 and saw that defense spending was below 1% from the previous Conservative government, we started massively investing in defense, and we're on track to triple our defense spending between 2015 and 2030. And we have a solid and real plan to reach 2% in the coming years.
Despite these assurances, European allies remain skeptical. Canada's inability to meet its commitments has raised questions about its reliability as a security partner. This skepticism is compounded by Canada's limited role in addressing other pressing global issues, such as energy security and trade. Another area of concern is Canada's underutilization of its vast natural resources. While Trudeau has highlighted Canada's potential as a reliable supplier of critical minerals and energy, critics argue that his government has failed to turn this potential into action.
That Canada is a reliable, trustworthy source of energy, of critical minerals, of inputs and ingredients into their manufacturing processes, into their prosperity, that Americans can rely on.
This statement underscores Canada's potential, but European leaders are increasingly looking to other partners who can deliver results. The lack of concrete action has left Canada lagging behind in areas where immediate leadership is needed. The consequences of this decline in influence are already being felt. Canada's voice in international forums is growing quieter, and its ability to shape global decisions is diminishing. If this trend continues, Canada risks being sidelined in the very discussions that will define the future of global politics. European allies losing patience? As Canada's global influence wanes, European leaders are beginning to lose patience with Justin Trudeau's leadership. While Trudeau has long positioned himself as a champion of multilateralism and international cooperation, his actions, or lack thereof, are starting to wear thin among Canada's closest allies. One of the clearest signs of this frustration is the growing skepticism surrounding Canada's trade commitments. Trudeau has repeatedly touted the success of agreements like the Canada-EU Comprehensive Economic and Trade Agreement, CETA, but European leaders are questioning whether Canada is truly delivering on its promises.
When, in 2016, we signed both CETA and Canada's strategic partnership with Europe, nobody knew just how much turmoil lay ahead of us. In the following years, this strengthened collaboration, on top of its economic benefits, has been crucial as we work to protect the health and safety of our citizens during the pandemic and to support the Ukrainian people in their fight for freedom, justice, and democracy.
While Trudeau highlights the benefits of these partnerships, critics argue that Canada's trade policies have failed to adapt to the rapidly changing global economy. European nations grappling with energy crises and supply chain disruptions are looking for partners who can act decisively. Canada's slow response to these challenges has left many wondering if Trudeau's government is capable of keeping up. At the same time, Trudeau's handling of U.S. tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum has raised further concerns. Despite his efforts to emphasize the interconnectedness of the Canadian and U.S. economies, the tariffs remain a significant point of contention.
What happened last time tariffs were brought in on steel and aluminum in 2018.
While Trudeau's rhetoric is aimed at defending Canadian industries, European leaders are watching closely, concerned that Canada's inability to resolve these disputes with its largest trading partner could have ripple effects on its other economic relationships. The growing impatience among European allies is not just about trade or defense, it's about trust. Canada's reputation as a reliable partner is being called into question, and the cracks in these relationships are becoming harder to ignore. If Trudeau cannot address these concerns, Canada risks being left behind as Europe looks elsewhere for stronger, more dependable allies. A wake-up call for Canada. One of the most shocking developments in recent months has been the rhetoric surrounding the potential annexation of Canada by the United States. While such a scenario might sound far-fetched, the fact that it's even being discussed at the highest levels of government has sent shockwaves through Canada and its allies. Trudeau has dismissed the idea of Canada becoming the 51st state as a non-starter, but his tone has shifted in recent weeks. What was once brushed off as a joke is now being taken seriously, especially as former President Donald Trump continues to make provocative statements about Canada's sovereignty.
Let's be very clear. Conversations around a 51st state are a non-starter. It's never going to happen. But we have to take seriously what the president is saying and fold that into our thinking as we continue to stand up for Canada.
This shift in tone reflects a growing realization that Canada's sovereignty is under threat, not just from rhetoric, but from economic and geopolitical pressures. Trump's renewed focus on Canada's critical minerals and energy resources has raised concerns that the U.S. could use its economic leverage to force concessions. The annexation threat has also sparked a wave of patriotism among Canadians. Across the country, citizens are rallying to support local businesses, diversify supply chains, and reduce reliance on the U.S. economy. This grassroots response has been a source of inspiration for Trudeau, who has praised Canadians for their resilience and unity.
The response of Canadians over these past weeks has been inspiring, as people have been there for each other, people have been changing their vacation plans, people have been looking at ways to buy Canadian, to support local businesses, to diversify their supply chains to places like Europe and Asia. This is a response of Canadians who are saying, yeah, this is going to be tough, but we're going to double down on Canadian pride and standing up for each other.
However, critics argue that this surge in patriotism is masking deeper issues. Canada's reliance on the U.S. for trade and defense has left it vulnerable to external pressures, and Trudeau's government has yet to present a clear strategy for reducing this dependence. The annexation rhetoric may be a wake-up call, but it also highlights the urgent need for Canada to assert its sovereignty on the global stage. Without decisive action, Canada risks being seen as a junior partner in its most important relationships, a perception that could have lasting consequences for its future. Canada's challenges are no longer distant storms. They're here, and they're demanding action. From strained alliances in Europe to unsettling rhetoric from the US, the stakes have never been higher. The world isn't waiting for Canada to catch up. Allies are losing patience, competitors are stepping in, and the cracks in Canada's global influence are widening. This isn't just about politics, it's about the future of a nation that must decide whether to lead or be left behind. The clock is ticking and the world is watching. If you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an update. Stay tuned for more hard-hitting coverage of Canadian politics and global affairs.